June 20th, scary.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And I'll just share the agenda. Perfect. We're live.
All right, you ready? All right, well then I will call today's meeting of the Sustainability Advisory Committee to order at 1:08.
Perfect.
I'll look for an approval of today's agenda. Craig and Lisa,
And so recorded vote.
all in favor?
I have to do a recorded vote.
Oh,
I
yeah.
apologize. So I will call the names. So thank you. We had
Hello, Leslie.
Anna Frychuk join as our mover, and then Crawford as our seconder. So I'll just call your name if you can please just say for or against. Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Yes.
Thank you. Anna Frychuk.
Yes.
Bill Cox.
Yes.
Thank you. Crawford. And D'Amico.
4. Yep.
Thank you. That is carried. Wonderful. Thank you.
No problem. Disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Seeing none, there's no closed session. I get approval of the May 4th minutes. Lisa and Leslie. Yeah.
Thank you. And so for our recorded vote, Anna Frychuk.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Cox.
Yes.
Crawford. Yeah. D'Amico. To hand. Thank you. And Huntley.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That is.
All right, takes us into general business and our strategic approach update on the energy conservation and demand management plan. Bridge and Kyle.
And thank you through you, Chair. Just before we begin, we will look to the committee to receive the presentation as additional information to be added to our agenda. And so if I could please have a mover and a seconder.
I'll be
Thank
the
you. Mayor Huntley as our mover and Bill Cox as our seconder. All right, so for the recorded vote, Bill Cox.
Yes.
Thank you. Crawford. Anna Frychuk.
Yes.
Thank you. D'Amico.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Yes.
Thank you. Wonderful. That is carried. Thank you, Bridget.
Okay, so at the last meeting, I think we discussed having staff come back with a strategic approach to update the energy conservation and demand management plan. I think we also discussed that it might be helpful to understand how all the 3 plans kind of are structured and how they can or do relate to each other. So I'm just going to take you through a few visuals and just to kind of, because hopefully it'll paint a better picture for you. And then I can kind of get into the approach that I would suggest we take. So if we can just, yeah, perfect. So we have 3 plans, as I think you guys are aware. So we have the Greater Peterborough Area Climate Change Action Plan, which part of that is the Cavan Monaghan Climate Change Action Plan, which is kind of stems from that. We have the Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan. And then we have our own purpose as the Sustainability Advisory Committee. So I thought it was kind of important for us to understand the vision of all 3 of those plans and maybe just kind of see like where the overlap is. So the overarching plan is the Greater Peterborough Area Climate Change Action Plan. The vision is shared with both the upper plan and the lower plan. It's to reduce our contributions to climate change while increasing our ability to adapt to climate change conditions. So kind of 2 key words are kind of mitigation and adaptation that you'll see through the plan. The Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan, it was there before the Climate Change Action Plan, but the vision there is to continually reduce our total energy consumption and associated carbon footprint through wise and efficient use of energy resources, while still maintaining an efficient and effective level of service for our clients and general public. Then we get to our own sustainability advisory committee. So we have to keep in mind the purpose that council established this committee for, and that was to promote sustainable practices throughout the community with regard to energy use, as well as climate change adaptation mitigation initiatives. So that.
Can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So the first one, just to have clarity in my mind, the climate change action plan for the county of Peterborough, based on our last conversation, my understanding was that committee hasn't assembled for quite some time. And then the plan in itself is also has not been updated for a few years. Is that accurate?
Well, the plan was it's accurate that the committee hasn't met, probably the county committee hasn't met in a couple of months, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Months.
The plan
okay.
itself is like a 25-year horizon,
Right.
25, 30. So it is a vision for like a 25-year period.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. For some reason, I was under the impression that the county climate change action committee hadn't assembled, and I didn't realize they had met that recently. So that does answer my question on that. So that's also being actively managed by another committee.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, Leslie, is that the baseline data was 2011, right? So that may be why people kind of think that it is outdated. It's not, but that was just the first year that reporting started to take place for municipalities. So that's why they kind of based it. That was where they could get the, they could pull the earliest data.
Right. And then, oh, hang on, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And then our energy conservation plan is, the expectation is that sets out the objectives to adhere to both the climate change action plan and the township's individual initiatives.
It doesn't yet. That's the existing. If you let me kind of go through, I'm going to kind of explain that part.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an understanding from just before we move on in terms of what the expectation is and how these all will meld together. And then my last question is the sustainability committee able to operate outside of what is in these plans? Or is it expected to just deliver what is in these plans?
So that I think could be a conversation when I wrap up, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
It'll kind of give you a little bit more of an overview of the three plans, and then how do you want to tackle this?
Sure.
So if you can just give me just a couple of minutes, I promise I won't be too long. Don't listen to Ryan.
I'll try and not interrupt.
Okay. All right. So can you flip to the next? Okay. So in terms of structure, I kind of did this slide. I hope it makes sense, but we've got the Greater Peterborough Area Climate Change Action Plan and the Cavan Monaghan Climate Change Action Plan. There are two streams. So there's a corporate and a community side. So the corporate has 5 themes, and at the upper tier, they have strategies. At the lower tier, they have action plans. And I'll kind of give you an example in a few slides. The community side has 6 theme strategies and corresponding action plan that goes with those themes. The energy conservation demand management plan right now is just corporate. So it just focuses on the what we can do from a municipal standpoint with our own facilities, our own buildings. I think right now it focuses mostly on buildings and facilities. I don't think it gets as far as fleet, So what we may want to consider is using our climate change action plan corporate as the basis for the revised energy management plan. I'm just planting that seed right now. I did draw kind of like a little arrow so you can see that you've got a corporate stream and they all kind of tie in. So if we can go to the next slide.
Sorry, go back 1 second. And just, what's corporate mean on the far right?
Corporate is municipal. So all of our facilities, our fleet, water services, anything that we as a municipality operate.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
a little bit more.
Okay. Okay. So if we kind of dig in a little deeper, look at that.
This page.
So dig a little bit deeper, and I do apologize for the font. It was the biggest I could get that it would all fit into one slide, so forgive me. But the corporate strategies center around 5 theme areas, which are buildings, fleet, water services, street lighting, and solid waste. So the strategies that are built around those themes are down below. So under buildings, we have 5 strategies, and that is to institutionalize energy efficiency and low carbon thinking into the organization, enhance operational efficiency of existing buildings, build municipal facilities to ensure high environmental performance, improve environmental performance of existing municipal buildings, and utilize renewable energy sources. Under fleet, we transition the municipal fleet to be more efficient and less carbon emitting. Water services, we enhance the operational efficiency of the water services system. Under street lighting, improve energy efficiency of street lighting system. And under solid waste, reduce the amount of organic waste generated through municipal operations. So that's kind of an overview of the 2 climate change action plans corporate strategies. The next slide is the energy conservation demand management plan. It was set up with goals and objectives. So I didn't list the objectives, but I just kind of focused on the 4 main goals. So to improve energy efficiency of our facilities by utilizing best practices to reduce operating costs, energy consumption, and greenhouse gas emissions. Maximize fiscal resources through direct and indirect energy savings, reduce our environmental impact of the township operations, and improve reliability of township equipment and reduce maintenance. So they're very broad, they're very all-encompassing, but there is a lot of overlap between the corporate goals of the energy demand management plan and the corporate goals of the climate change strategies and action plans. Okay, so now, so that's kind of a high-level overview of the structure of the plans. Getting into the strategic planning framework that we talked about, I think in our last meeting, what I mentioned to you is that the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Development, also known as AMAFRA, they developed a strategic planning tool for municipalities who want to engage in strategic planning, but don't maybe have the resources to hire a consultant to take them through the process. So it's built on a framework of 5 stages. I see us applying this structure in this format to the development of our energy conservation and demand management plan. And I did kind of put some corresponding dates for the individual stages that we could look towards, that we could schedule to get ourselves to a completed plan. So, you would start with your preparation and vision and mission. A lot of that has kind of been developed for us through the corporate climate change action plan, but we can certainly look to blend it and maybe add to it, collect and analyze data, and develop goals and action plans. So that would see us with a revised energy management plan mid to end September. Having said all that, we still have the community side of the climate change action plan. So we still have to, I don't see us applying a strategic planning exercise to the community initiatives. Because it would be looking like we would be changing the climate, or we'd be redoing the climate change action plan. And I don't necessarily think we want to go down that road, but that's up for the committee to discuss. The climate change action plan, it's a comprehensive plan, and it was done both at the regional and local level. We've never really tackled anything on the strategic or action plan side of the community initiatives. So I think, my question to the committee is, are we better to go through the action items of the climate change action plan and maybe prioritize a few that we could tackle as a committee at the same time we're updating the energy management plan?
I guess.
Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I understand where you're going. I think this is really great. I like how you put this together. And I think my first thought is, I think we definitely need to take this approach for community initiatives. I see them being as part of your energy management conservation plan. I don't see the energy management conservation plan as being strictly limited to corporate, simply because from the township's perspective, where else could we work and document to roll out these initiatives and track their progression as a committee?
So, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. The original one was like our requirement was for it to be corporate, and that was kind of it. So now I don't know what the current legislation says. Just off the top of my head, it's a good point, but I think that we could still do something that can monitor and track on the other side. It would depend on how we develop the new plan going forward, because it would get hard if we have goals and objectives that we set, similar to how it was laid out the last time. Once you put it to the community, then we lose a bit of control, because basically these are the things that we can control, and the community side is the thing that we promote and try to get utilizing. So
yeah, I mean, I agree. It's completely different from both an approach and a measurement perspective.
But I don't, sorry, Leslie, I don't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah.
But it's that hard to track on the community side. I mean, if we talked about, more efficient houses, green roofs, things like that stuff can all get recorded and reported, as it goes on, especially if it comes through your department. And it might, our initiative might not be as bold as you can only build green houses, but it can be, we can track and show that there's, a trend to it within the township, right?
So,
yeah,
And
so
utilities. Yeah, sorry, if I can just add one more thing too. I think we need to explore as a township the utility connection. What are they rolling out from an energy management perspective to their customers that we can promote and encourage participation in?
So in terms of collecting data, so I have reached out to both Enbridge and Hydro to see if we can enter into a data sharing agreement. That's how we got the data for the community in the first place. So we need to update that data. So I would think probably 2020 data is available now. But
I mean, it's available. It would be available right up until last month. Did you get the contact that I sent you guys, Scott Bullock?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's the same one, but let me go back and check that, because yes, I did get that contact that you sent. That was for Enbridge, right? Not for Hydro?
That's correct.
Or was it the other way around?
No, it was for Enbridge. We were going to meet, but then I didn't hear back from you guys. So I just assumed that it was, potentially not something that we were able to pursue at this time.
I think we tried to schedule a meeting and it got canceled, right?
Yes, and then I sent a follow-up email with wanting to set up a meeting with the introduction to get you guys the data
Okay.
with the name and yeah, anyhow. But we're still saying that we want to pursue that so that we can actually, to your point, get a handle on the measurement perspective. Yeah.
So there is like a monitoring and tracking component as part of our climate change action plan. It's not really something that we've done as a municipality.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I think in previous presentations to council, I did kind of say that is something where we could do better. And I think that's where this committee, it's great to have this committee because we can start that process. But first we need to get the data.
Yeah.
Okay. I did do another slide of the community initiatives just to kind of give you a feel. So their themes are homes, workplaces, schools, transportation, food, land, and people. So if you kind of go to the next one, I did break down, it's a lot of information. So what I did was I kind of focused on the strategies that represented the biggest bang for our buck. So the GHG emission reduction potential. So I kind of went through to the individual strategies and action items and said, okay, what has the biggest potential for us to take a bigger bite out of our emission reduction? And I kind of just put them in order. So under homes, you know, help existing homes to be more energy and water efficient. That's, you know, if we were successful in establishing some key activities around doing that, we have a greater opportunity to reduce that emission reduction. Same with our workplaces and schools. If you go down to the next one.
Sorry, before you jump off that one, just
I'm sorry.
quick question. So for the homes, you got like 5,107 tons per year. Is that for all the homes or is that like, what is it like per home? Like,
So that's where the data came in from Enbridge and that's for all the homes. That would be for us as a community in
Right.
total.
so we would be looking at it from like a big level and say we want to reduce 5,000 tons per year, or we want to look at it and say, you know, the average house is, you know, 20 tons and we want it to be 10 tons or whatever.
So that would be the activity would be to say, okay, if we want to reduce it by how much and how much is realistic and how are we going to actually
How
go
do
to
you,
do
how do you
that?
get there, right? That's the bigger question.
That's where we set
Okay.
action items
Excellent.
to do that, right?
And that's where you can, oh, Kath has her hand up.
Sorry,
Sorry.
thanks, thank you. Sorry, so if I'm interpreting this correctly, the 5,107 tons a year is the potential reduction if we were to make changes to regulations around home construction. My question is, well, if that's right, but my question is, given that there have been a large number of new homes built in the municipality, was that specific strategy incorporated into all of that new construction? Because I feel like there's been this bulk of new construction in the township, where like this might be like something that we can do something going forward, but I don't know if there is.
Can't go back. Yeah.
Like,
it wouldn't
is there
go back.
future quantity of houses being projected into a plan that where we can have this impact? Because if it's already done, then this isn't really a strategy if it's already happened.
So, yeah, so this would be, there's existing homes and then there's new homes, right? So your existing homes, what can we do to help existing homeowners make their houses more energy efficient? Building new homes, is there a policy we can put in place, or is there something we can do through the official plan or zoning bylaw that would require more energy efficient, smaller environmental footprint homes? It would be a go forward strategy, Kath, just to answer that clearer.
Did I?
But this is where you need that baseline data, right?
That's
So-
right.
So if you knew
That's right.
if a new build was 10 tons
Yeah,
and our target was to get them to 7, And you could say, if you do this, this, and this, that'll get you to 7 or 6.
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
So
Sorry, go
do we
ahead.
do that through, and I guess we're probably jumping ahead here, but is this like incentive based or stick based? Like, are we? is
So
it-
if we can kind of hop ahead to a couple of slides, I kind of took a few examples and broke them down. So this one's good, yeah. So you can see what I did was I took the strategy, which was to help existing homes become more energy and water efficient. That's the bottom one.
Mhm.
Under the plan, they list the primary action is to support the development of a business case for a deep energy retrofit program. I won't read the whole thing, but it's a deep energy retrofit program. Along with exploring and investigating local improvement charges and or incentives available through a community improvement plan. The assumptions that they list is that that business case for the deep energy retrofit is done at the regional level. So that would be done at the county level and that it could be filtered down. It doesn't have to be, but that's just at the time they did the plan, the assumption was that the county and the city would develop the business case to do that. Having said that, the community improvement plan is something we've already put in place. And we recently expanded it to include a host of other programs, one of which is a sustainability grant. So that's a tool that we could use to help us reach that strategy.
But isn't that tool to businesses, not homes?
I think the sustainability grant is for homes. Could be wrong.
Leslie has her hand up.
Sorry.
That's
Leslie,
okay.
go ahead.
So I like how you've broken this out because I think it sets, some context in terms of what people are already thinking about. But just on Kath's point about all the new development coming, I forget if I think it's 2050, or it may have changed, but there's to be no more natural gas furnaces installed. And I don't know if it's the province or Canada after that date, like we're wanting to be carbon neutral by that point in time. So I'm wondering, is there an appetite for potentially, looking at different heating sources as we're building houses? To really, not like necessarily we would hit a reduction, but we wouldn't dramatically contribute to emissions via all this new development.
Mhm. So are you saying like for us as the municipality
Yeah.
to mandate that? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, because I'm wondering if that's something, I know that you had applied for the grant to hire a consultant to come in and look over building code. And I'm saying that loosely because I'm not entirely sure of all those.
Accelerate. Yeah.
Yes. So, wondering if that could be explored. So not only from, a pure building perspective, but also, looking at the heating and cooling of the home. Like, is there an option to put it in heat pumps and pass over the furnace? Like the natural gas fired furnace. I don't know if people are having conversations about that or what that is, what thinking is going on in the industry right now. But that's definitely something on my mind that came to my mind when Kath mentioned that is, how can we look at lowering the emissions from adding all this heating load into the municipality with the mass development plan over the next, 10 or more so years.
So I haven't heard the natural gas thing, but the intent more with the building code is to go to a net zero. And they keep throwing out different dates and they change, so I don't think too much back, because we're also in this state of, we might be signing on with the national building code, which will change everything, so it's kind of in a bit of flux right now.
Okay.
But definitely at the moment, we can't mandate anything beyond the building code, so for us to say you can, or what your heating source is, we can't dictate that ourselves municipally. But the intent is to go to a net zero home. I'm not sure what the natural gas part is. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, I mean, so that would basically be like no natural gas.
Well, it'd be no, that you don't use more energy than what you make. So I mean, there's a whole issue of problems to resolve before we can get to net zero, because then everybody's gonna have to be on geothermal and solar and all that. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's that straightforward, because if you can produce enough, then you could potentially have natural gas. So it's not that black and white yet, and that's why it just keeps getting pushed out a bit. But so yeah, at this point, you still could, but yeah, if you're, it's more, seems to be a push for geothermal and other uses like that. So much you can get with insulation.
And then just on the retrofit piece, a few years ago, well, it's actually probably more than a few years ago now, we partnered with the city of Markham to do just this, like a retrofit in 4 residential areas of, you know, whether they met the requirement of the house age, energy use requirements and whatnot. But that's potentially another linkage to explore there, is doing some sort of partnership.
Yeah, so, and I think like just in hearing the conversation, there's lots of ideas around how we can work towards reaching these strategies. The actions that are listed in the plan, they are examples, they're suggestions, you know, we can massage that. It's just if we want to try and keep the spirit of the strategy. But I think going back, do we want to take the approach that we go through the climate change action plan and we identify the strategies that have the biggest bang for the buck, so that represent maybe the greatest opportunity for us to reduce our emissions, and then really zero in and drill down on them, maybe take 2 of them for the remainder of this committee, drill down and develop some clear action plans that we can move forward with on the community side. At the same time, we're going to go through the corporate side through the energy demand management plan, and maybe kind of blend the corporate side of the climate change action plan into that plan going forward. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. Thanks.
Perfect.
I think that sounds great to do that. I think that makes sense. And I think including a community element will really help, you know, just residents get an idea, like help understand how climate change is impacting them and how they can do their part. So I think that definitely including a couple of community elements would be my personal way to recommend that we go.
Okay.
Sorry, one.
Oh, go ahead, Kat.
One quick comment is, as we are pursuing all of the corporate themes, I think that along that thread of raising awareness, it will be really valuable, whether, you know, however it's done by the municipality, whether it's on social media, whether it's through newsletters, but as each of these areas the actions start to take effect, it's really good for the residents of the community to know how it's impacting them in a positive way. So as we move forward with each of the corporate initiatives, for there to be a communications plan that directly states the benefit to the community members as a way to start opening up the community engagement with the community aspects of the energy management plan. So it's part of that awareness building piece.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And if I could jump in on that, I think at one point, Councillor Huntley, you had expressed a wish to any reports coming forward to council include a sustainability impact on it, and that if we start thinking as an organization the impact we have from a sustainability, from climate change perspective, from an emission standpoint, that's the piece that we can communicate back through social media, through the piece that we're trying to positively impact our community.
But I think, sorry, just to jump in there, I think that's a piece of it, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I've been kind of waiting to as we get through here to say, when do we get to do this? But building on top of that, I mean, I just came from an Orca meeting where we actually have, you know, our climate change report card.
Mhm.
you know, we list everything that, you know, is part of our initiatives and how we're standing and how we're doing on it, right? But that, you know, when you went through your strategic planning thing, you know, the bottom of it, you're reporting, right? So that's why I wasn't bringing it up then. But yeah, like issuing this report card like Orca does, which is a fantastic template, like we just get off and reuse it, no problem, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great way to show that we are actually achieving some of these things, or, you know, or not, you know, when we do need to pay more attention to things, right?
Yeah, and in the climate change action plan, there are things that we have done, particularly on the corporate side. There's been a lot that we've done. On the community side, not so much.
Right.
That's where I think we do really need to utilize this committee to do that.
Yeah, and to be all honestly, it's not like your kids report card, right? Like it doesn't have to be all gold stars. Like
Yeah.
showing that you're not achieving stuff, you know, is a good incentive to start thinking about it
Yeah.
and changing the way you do things, right?
It's a good incentive and it's a good way to hold everyone accountable.
Yeah,
The community strategies would be built into this community or energy conservation and demand management plan. There would be a section in there.
no, the demand management plan would stay corporate focused. It would probably pull in elements on the corporate side of the climate change action plan.
And we
Okay.
decided that there's no space for community in this. That's not an appropriate link.
I think that's where we kind of landed, but
Yeah, and I'm not, it depends on where we go with the thing, because we don't want to touch, the original one tied ourselves to some goals that we're gonna shoot for, like 5% reductions, and so you don't want to do that if it's community and you can't control it, because then it kind of screws up your data at the end of whether you did the things you're gonna say corporate wise. I'm not saying we can't tie community into here, but I think everybody's big thing is we need to do better on the community side. So do you think that the regional plan is going to be the better avenue for the community part?
well, the regional plan sets the strategy.
Yeah.
The local plan sets the actions.
Yeah.
That-
But do you,
that
but do
feeds
you think
into
there's
those.
enough in that we can deal with the community side without doing any on the energy management?
That was my thought. Yeah,
Gotcha.
that was my thought,
Yeah.
but that's,
You just need the baseline, right? And
Yeah.
You're just reporting off that baseline.
Yeah, separately from the energy
Separately.
demand.
Exactly.
yeah. And
I
it-
think
And
that'd be the cleaner way if everybody's good with
Yes,
that, but
yes.
doesn't matter.
that's what I'm proposing, but
Yeah, but as long as you're not, you can't control it, you can't do a lot, but you can incentivize it and you can report on it.
Yeah.
So people can see it, right? Because I think most people are like, I don't do no good job, or, you
yeah.
know, but nobody really knows, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I picture the same with bridges as the energy management plan. It's something we can control and that we say what we're going to do. And
As a
then-
municipality,
Yeah, and then
yeah.
on the other plan, that's where we really engage the community part.
Right.
Do any
I
more?
was right. Yeah.
Okay, so the next step would be to obviously start the process of updating our existing energy demand management plan. And we would apply that structure that I kind of had earlier for the strategic planning exercise. So like for next meeting, which would be July 17th, I see us spending a portion of that meeting, kind of understanding, maybe developing a vision and a mission for that particular plan. I would hopefully be able to have some data for you that you can kind of sink your teeth into. We did just change over our corporate reporting portal to EnerStar. It's called something different, but I think it's like an EnerStar reporting module. We just completed the training on it. So right now the data is as of 2020. So we have to add our updated data. But we can pull that in to show what's been happening on a corporate side. And then if I can get some agreements in place with Hydro and Enbridge, we can start to evaluate how far we've come on the community side. That's going to be a little bit harder to process because we'll be looking at comparing it to 2011 baseline data, and we've seen a lot of growth in this community since 2011. So there's going to be a lot of manipulation, but hopefully I can have that for you for next meeting. Not that you would have to take it all in, but you could just take it with you and kind of process it, kind of percolate a little bit. And maybe we can take a look at the strategies and kind of highlight the ones we want to focus on. So if I kind of brought those back to next meeting, does that make sense?
I
Is
think-
everybody?
Just to clarify, Bridget, so the data that you're requesting is community data, as in residential data?
Yeah.
And has anyone indicated if they're going to be able to provide you with that?
Not yet.
So they probably won't, because it's like, if they do provide it, it would have to be basically just like a lump number for the township, which would perhaps be, suitable for what you're looking for. I don't know about
Well,
hydro.
when we did the original climate change action plan, we entered into a data sharing agreement for that. So I've asked them for the exact same
Right.
agreement, so we would get the same data, so we would be comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'm looking back, I'm thinking in my head, but the date, because and at that time, I was actually in the manager of business intelligence at Enbridge, and we were the ones providing all of this data. But I can't think back to whether or not that was something that we had board approval for continuing. But I know that it wasn't, there's only so much that they can release due to Privacy Act.
yeah.
So I don't, I guess, are you expecting to get it for all of Peterborough or just for Cavan?
Just for cabin. If they can break it down, I don't know, I would imagine they'd be able to break it down. I think the privacy side that was the intent behind the data sharing agreement, but.
Yeah.
You sound like you have a lot more knowledge about it than I do. I've just asked the question.
It's outdated. I'm just curious to see, I'll be curious to see what they're able to provide, but hopefully it's going to be useful, and we can leverage it and see what's been happening.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Bridget.
Get a mover to receive that presentation. Lisa,
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Kath, second to receiving. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, and so for the public, this presentation will be added as an additional item on our township website to the agenda, and I will also email you a copy so that you do have it. Okay, so with that, our recorded vote. Crawford?
Yeah.
Thank you. Onufrichuk?
Yes.
D'Amico?
Yes.
Huntley?
Yes.
And Bill Cox?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, that is carried. So does the committee have a next meeting date or Bridget
was
had
on the
mentioned the
board, July
17th, so
17th.
I didn't see
that. Honestly, I just put that in because it was like what the fifth Tuesday, and so I kind of went. So is everybody okay with that? Or?
I guess.
It's a Monday.
Is it a Monday? Oh, so I went like that.
An option to the committee, if we can't set a date now, you could give me a motion that staff coordinate the next meeting date based on your availability in the month of July or August. Typically, our committees don't meet in the summer months, so July and August, we do resume in September, but if you do have a lot of work to do and feel a meeting would be beneficial, that's at your leisure, so.
I would like to just mention something that I'm wondering if we could perhaps kind of, since we're going to be setting, a number of dates, just to get a sense in terms of what everyone's availability is like with, day and time. And because I noticed that Manny had also sent a note that his shift has changed. And then I know some people, may have work commitments during the day. So I'm just wondering if there's, some flexibility, or if we can, maybe kind of do one day of one time an early meeting and the next time do a later meeting, just to get some balance with everyone's availability. I noticed that a couple of, I don't know if a couple, but there is committees who do meet a little bit later at 4. I'm just wondering, is that an option for this committee?
Your committee, through the terms of reference, has the flexibility to have a flexible date and time arrangement as long as it's agreed upon by all committee members. So that's always an option.
Okay.
So I think then, does the committee have items to discuss in July, or would you like to meet in September?
Oh, I think we've got a
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
tight schedule if we
Yes,
want to
okay.
try and get like
Okay.
if we could kind of adhere to that strategic planning schedule. So I think then that would mean if we were to meet on the Tuesday, if we were to stay with that, it would be July 18th. And do we want to stay with the time, or do we want to move to a different time?
Yeah.
I think I've been open.
Kath,
I'd
what
say
do you
leave it.
schedule like?
And then work with the chair to find out whether
Coordinate.
Sounds good.
it can get coordinated with.
So then it would be a motion that staff coordinate a meeting with
Is that a
the
motion, just a direction?
well, a motion, because I need a motion for that. So that staff coordinate a meeting within the month of July. Okay, and is there any additional items for that meeting that you would like specifically included?
It would be great. We have a specific. Sorry. I know that we have a specific item from that flow chart you showed. Like there's a deliverable on that day. So for me and probably for other committee members, it would be good to have an action plan. So if there's any deliverables that we need to have ready for that July meeting, it gives us some time to organize, or whether it's points we want to research or think about in advance of that meeting, so that when we come to that meeting, we can be productive and make that a working meeting.
Sounds good. How much time do you think you might need, Kath? Like a week? 48 hours?
It depends. My schedule is really busy. I just, I can, I personally, if we knew what we needed to be expected of, the earlier we know that, it's helpful for me. And then in terms of setting future meeting dates, I just want to mention that come fall, I start traveling internationally for work. So booking in meetings in advance is really helpful for me, because I can also coordinate time zones, because I just might be joining a meeting from a different part of the world. I've been doing this for a while, so I just make it work.
Lucky you.
Sometimes people think it's much more glamorous than it is. Trust me.
Okay, wonderful. So hearing no additional items, just a mover and a seconder, then just for staff to coordinate the meeting based on your availability, please and thank you.
I will move it.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, and so we'll just do a recorded vote. D'Amico,
Here, yep.
thank you, Karen. Huntley.
Still here.
On Friday. Thank you. Phil Cox.
Yes.
Thank you. And Crawford? Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you very much. So we'll work to do that. That is carried. And then,
Move to adjournment,
yes,
please.
thank you.
Lisa again?
Thank you.
And Kath.
All right. And so recorded vote, D'Amico,
Yes.
thank you. Huntley,
Yes.
Phil Cox,
Yes.
Crawford. Yeah. Wonderful. And Anna Frederick.
Yes.
Thank you. That is carried. All right. Thank you very much, committee members, for your time and joining